Oh,
do.
your stories are the best, HB. I always liked your tagline of "Let not the truth get in the way of a good story."
Some of the best sales advice we ever got.
My Uncle George. Don't never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So.
I think you and Brian Kavakis are similar in that, right? Except I think all his craziness is true.
Yep. You couldn't make it up. You'd never believe it if it wasn't true, as far as I can tell. How was your Thanksgiving, Corey?
Oh, it was good, man. It was nice just to hang out with the kids and the family and the wife and take some time off. How about y'all?
Yeah, it was good, man. We burned up the highways, man. Went back home, Raleigh, Wilson, everywhere in between, multiple times. But good. I mean, that stuff's getting so much easier. We're not looking at like meltdowns at 3 p.m. if we take the girls, somewhere all day now. Yeah, they're 5 now, so they can kind of rock and roll all
They're
day.
road warriors by now.
Yeah, I know, dude. I mean,
5 years old.
That they have done that little 3-hour trip a whole bunch of times, going back and forth. But yeah, it was good. It's weird. Like, I don't know if this happens to you guys. Like Thanksgiving, like the Thanksgiving break and then the Christmas break. I can't tell what day it is. Like, so Sunday before I was going back to work, like felt like Saturday, and I was like, yeah, I'm still employed. Like, I got to go to work tomorrow, but it doesn't feel like it at all. It's all kind of weird to get my mind back right again.
Well, the timing was good this year. HB, how about you? I know y'all had a little vacay.
We went to did part of it in Costa Rica, which is a beautiful place. Just seeing flocks of scarlet macaws that are just here we just see regular birds, and they're these
do they birds. Sound like what's my name? Any of that over there?
Like that. So we had a lot of squirrel monkeys that would come through in the morning and afternoon, and they're beautiful little brown. They're cute, but they're thieves, and they'll
poop at you.
They would run over to the table where they kept fruit, and they could peel a banana before they hit the floor and have half of it eaten. And then there were these howler monkeys. First morning we were there at like 4:30 in the morning. It sounded like there were 100 hunting dogs outside our room. It was, earth shattering. And I wear earplugs to sleep. And thankfully, the next morning it was raining overnight, so the monkeys were hiding up from the rain and not hollering. But there's some black ones with a white face that are big, and they're not afraid of folks. They are not.
They can whoop you.
My son ran up to hit them with a rat tail just to get them. They were on the stairwell. They said they will open sliding glass doors, go in your room, and steal jewelry. I mean, they are no lie. So yeah, they know the drill. So Harrison went up with a rat, tried to pop one and scare it off, and it just stood up and bowed up at him. He was like, "Oh snap!"
Yeah.
So
do they know? Do they take the jeweler to like the local vendor and get a couple bananas? Like, have they figured that out yet?
I think there's a dude up at the end of the driveway with his trunk open. They just go throw it in there and get fruit. So, anyway. But it was that was good. And then we got home midnight on Tuesday, and then went to Lake Gaston and relaxed for a few days.
All right, yeah.
My wife fixed a full spread like there were 20 people coming, and it was just there were 3 of us.
Yeah.
But we're still eating turkey. So
you can't mess with money, man. I spent Thanksgiving in Wilson. I was not in Costa Rica.
It was a beautiful place.
Only crackheads steal stuff in Wilson, not
monkeys.
Well, I kept thinking about Jerry Clower and the coon hunting monkey.
Oh yes,
that's right.
Because he said what he called it, trashy things, and they look too much like folks.
Too much like folks.
Anyway, it was.
Yeah, once it blow up at you, I'm not interested. I heard what was it? It was a comedian saying, what's his name? Nate Bargatze. He said, "Look, we didn't have much to do in he's from like it's something like Wilson County, Tennessee, or something like that.
Old Hickory, Tennessee.
Old Hickory, yeah." He said, "Look, they used to have a monkey you could fight, an orangutan you could fight at the daggone fair.
$5.
He said, you had to pay $5 for that. He said, but that was pre-internet. You couldn't Google how strong is an orangutan.
You had to ask.
You had to meet somebody that just fought an orangutan.
It was hilarious. He's my favorite comedian.
Kill you. Arms look stringy, but no, they're strong.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Pre-internet. Well, speaking of pre-internet, HB Moore. This podcast is meant to get behind the scenes on the HVAC industry and the folks that make it all happen. You've been making it all happen since the 70s.
1979 was the beginning.
Tell us, what was Willis Carrier like in real life? I mean, was he a good man? Was he a
type of fellow? That's funny.
Used to have coffee on Wednesdays.
This is the beginnings. So give us a little bit of a backstory on HB Moore. Where you come from and how you got in this crazy industry.
I was born and raised in Raleigh, North Carolina. Been in Greenville now for almost half my life. Moved here 30 years ago last week, or 2 weeks ago, to open this office. Dad was a college professor at NC State, and mom was a teacher too. 1 of 5 kids. Always enjoyed how things worked. Just mechanic, just loved. Got a toolbox full of big boy tools when I was 7 years old, and just always liked to make things out of wood or build stuff. And
still got that toolbox, probably, I imagine.
I do. The hinges are broken on it. I'll make a birdhouse out of it. So I always tested very high in mechanical aptitude. But I knew I didn't want to be the auto mechanic when I grew up. I liked cars, but I didn't want to be a grease monkey. So the summer after my senior year in high school, I got a job with a company out of Durham that was building Rex Hospital and the Museum of Art in Raleigh. Yeah. And worked that summer. And during that summer, the guy that was a superintendent was my girlfriend at the time's brother-in-law, who's older than us. And we were talking, and I said, I like what we're doing. And he says, if you want to get in a good spot in this industry, get into the service side of this industry, because construction rides the economy up and down, and it's, layoffs and then more work than you got people for and all that. So that was the most sage advice anybody gave me. So that ended up being my path. I did regular, normal liberal arts college, and then went to Wake Tech and got my HVAC and refrigeration certificate and all that good stuff. So I've been doing. I came to work at Piedmont in 1981, and it
was a good year.
Entry level. You boys were born that year.
Yeah. Damn,
there's good things happening all over the place, boy.
We were starting strong that year.
I was the entry level technician when I started, but I was ended up being a residential service sales technician. So we'd go do cleaning checks, do preventive maintenance on people's equipment at home, and then I could sell air cleaners and power room ventilators and humidifiers and all that. So I made spiffs every day and ended up doubled my paycheck every week in what is now commission. And then I was there for a few years, and then not many people know this, but I took a detour for a little while to pursue being a stockbroker.
What? I didn't know that.
You didn't know that, did you? So I did my series.
Only known you for 20 years.
Did my series 7s, and but it was with First Jersey Securities, and their CEO, his name was Bob Brennan, and Bob ended up being on TV a lot as he went to trial for all kinds of things. So it was. All I can tell you is that when I would go there,
was a debacle.
Well, I'd go in their office in the evening over off of Glenwood Avenue in Raleigh, and there were just guys in the bullpen, with their ties off, selling penny stocks. And I finally was like, you know what? I don't want to do that. So I backed off of that. And then started More Comfort Service Company in Raleigh, which I did for 6.5 years. And then ran into Buddy Kelly, one of our founders at Piedmont, June of '89, and just started a conversation. And not to come back to work for him or anything, but just how's life? And we just kind of started chatting. And then anyway, a few weeks later, he wrote me a letter and said, if you ever want to come back in management or sales, you name it, and we'll figure something out. So
for the younger crowd, a letter is actually what you write on paper with a pen or pencil.
Company stationery. And Pony Express brought it by the house. And, he'd written it 3 weeks earlier, but it got there. So, so we spent the fall of '89 just transferring the More Comfort clients over to Piedmont. And I got married in December. I got married December 16th of '89. And 2 weeks later, I showed up for a brand new job at Piedmont to open up. And they literally unfolded a road map, which for those of you that use
Google Maps on paper.
It's
Google today.
You could get the whole state on one page. So they literally sat down with Jerry Kennedy, who was our general manager, and he's like, what do you want to do? And he said, we're ready to expand the company. They only had a Raleigh office at the time. So I said, well, I have family in Rocky Mount and Goldsboro, North Carolina, and they're both in the business community. So let's go east. So we spent 3 years building a base here. And at the end of 3 years, so November of '93, we opened our first little 900 square foot office in Greenville with 3 technicians and a dispatcher. And now we have 35 technicians and about 45 people work here in this office, 47 in this office. And
what's your maintenance base? What's the maintenance base there?
Maintenance base is about 4.2 million. This office.
Come on, baby.
Not
We
too
had 300.
shabby for Eastern
We had
North Carolina.
325,000 in base when I started. So
Not
That was the
bad.
minimum.
I told this story.
Office.
I told one of our maintenance sales reps this yesterday. So I started on January 2nd of 1990 when I came back to sell maintenance, and I'm in this little cubicle under the stairwell in the old Raleigh office with a sliding door. I mean, it was just, it was a walk in and there's a full length desk and some bookshelves and a phone and a light and a file cabinet. Well, I'm sitting at my desk and my phone rings, and the guy that had the job, the maintenance sales job in Eastern North Carolina before me, he was there for 1 year. He sold 2 contracts, and he introduced himself and he goes, "Hey man, you better get out of there." He goes, "You've made the biggest mistake of your life. There's nothing to sell in Eastern North Carolina." And I'm like, thank you so much for this encouraging call as I'm starting my new family and going. So
I only have everything riding on this.
and I'm like, I don't know if that was the devil himself on the other end of the phone trying to throw doubt in my mind. But anyway, I think it propelled me to prove him wrong, and we have done so. So then fast forward to 2004-ish, I met Corey Brown when he was in college, but we were on a motorboat and he was skiing or wakeboarding. And, he had a whole lot of energy, and I just remembered if we could harness that, we could use it. We could use it for good.
We're still saying
problem.
that. Yeah, we are. To this day, we're still having that same conversation. If we could just harness it.
If we could
And he
get that sucker to
He
run.
did. He actually did. He showed up to a sales call with a pair of board shorts on one time to prove the point to the customer.
That was
It
the
was
second customer I ever, showed up to a meeting with.
It's just you were so creative.
What was that cat's name, HB? Fred's Food Club.
Yeah, I'll spit it out.
You'll get it faster than I am.
And a couple years later, he said, "Hey, I got this friend named Shane Corbett."
That's right.
And so y'all, we've had some wonderful years together, still are. But you guys made a big splash down here, and then Shane moved on to Raleigh, and then to Service Logic, and Corey's with Service Logic now. And I thought the world was going to end at that point. When Corey was rainmaker here for a long time. We have at least 40% market share in our area, and it's like, oh my God, I'm gonna spiral out of control at the end of my career. And we've got two guys that are on board now. I think one of them's the top in the sales derby right now. The other was number 11 in the country. So and they're wonderful guys, and they compete with each other but have a good time, and just a joy to work with. So Nate Sexton and Matt Hardy are fine folks, and you guys have helped be a part of training them too. So it's just a neat, it's a great industry, and lots of it's a small industry. It's people from coast to coast for years and years, and they move around a little bit, but it's been a real sweet ride. I've still got a few more years, but it's been good. It's been good. You guys have been some of the best part of it. So.
Well, it same here, by the way, goes for you. There, because of my probably high energy and lack of ability to slow that down in my own right, I have been frustrated a time or two. Probably the first time 3 months into the job, I said, I've called everybody. There ain't nobody.
That dude that called you your first day, HB, he was right. There's nothing here.
There ain't nobody here. I've called them all. So, and then fast forward almost 20 years later, I'm still in the business and predominantly most of my career in East North Carolina. But I appreciate, not everybody has, the benefit of an HB Moore in their office, to be to build that camaraderie. Boy, we could share story after story of surveys at Scotland, on top of an EP Mart, and flies wrestling in the windowsill of a subway. Shetland ponies, that are hanging out to dry on the way back from Roanoke Rapids. All those, all those things really make the work worthwhile, right? It is the ride. As I gain in years, I have realized more and more that, really the ride is where it's at. It's not the destination, that I'm trying to reach, whether it's financial or career or whatever. But man, the memories and stories that we all have shared together, some with UHB and some with Shane, of course, going 45 miles in reverse in a Volkswagen Jetta is or just things that, you don't lose quickly. And the people, and I'd say especially you cats, right, have, even though I have left this industry twice to try my hand at some other things, the relationships that we've been able to build here, and stories and just fun we've been able to have while we're trying to, grow a company, have made it so fun. So thank you for being, not firing me about, 6 months in when I jumped out from under a desk while you were on the phone just to scare the daylights out of you. HB had no idea. He was like letting a bobcat loose in the office. He just didn't know. He thought, yeah, it'd be a good idea.
What?
He just didn't know. He didn't know the ruckus I was going,
or the time that you superimposed my face on David Hasselhoff's body, unclothed body with a surfboard, and then sent it to the entire Piedmont.
To the entire Piedmont company.
Yes.
I was like, uh-oh. That went to everybody, not just Greenville.
The president of the company just saw that. So.
Oh, me. Well, you look a little bit like him, back in the day. Yeah. So,
Get a little silver. He's probably silver, too, on top.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. No, it's true because for two very different people, for all of Corey's talents and energy and my lack thereof, there were two very different challenges for HB to have to adjust to. And, it's not, I don't think it's as common as I wish it was to have a really good teacher along with your boss when you first get into something, because we were young and, we had certain talents and different things, but that doesn't mean we were going to make it at this job. We could work ourselves right out of a job, but you really wouldn't let us do that, So if everybody listening hadn't figured it out yet, HB hired both of us at Piedmont, and we've been friends ever since and coworkers, and it's been a really, really great thing. And, as far as I'm concerned, HB's biggest talent is his eye for talent, baby. Because he hadn't picked many losers. Now, but the thing about that, too, is, and we joke about that because HB has been poached more than anybody else at Piedmont probably, but
the Durham Bulls of Piedmont Service Group.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's one thing to have an eye for talent, but then you do have to develop that because that's not the whole piece of the pie. And HB is really good at doing both of those things and building culture and all those things are things that he's really good at. So, I guess one question I have for you, HB, is as you built specifically at Piedmont, I guess as you built a business, inside of Piedmont, a branch there. What would you say was the biggest challenge that you faced over those, 30 years now?
I would say probably the entire time, and even up to today, is finding technical talent, is still getting enough quality technicians, especially when your company's growing as fast as it has with you guys and the current people, bringing in new business and just keeping it staffed that way. And you guys know we've started the pre-apprenticeship tradesformers program here in the East, which has really been great. We've got guys now that entered 6 years ago and are now journeyman technicians for us, and brought them in since they were in the 11th grade when they started doing summer work for us. So that's been very rewarding. It went from a challenge to something very rewarding, but and it's the long game. You want to just get people that have 20 years experience and put them on a truck and let them go. It's a long game, but it's rewarding. Just like hiring people that aren't trained salespeople and training them up and getting them going. So it's been good. That's probably been the toughest part. And nobody had full service contracts when we got here, and that actually made it pretty easy just to do cost of ops every single time. To look at what it costs to operate and own equipment on a building and just do it over and over and over and don't get off task. And it's been a differentiator all along, and it still is for the sales reps down the hall here now. Mm-hmm. That's why they've had huge success they've had 2 full years here and are crushing it. And it's because they use the tools are not for the sales rep. The tools are for the customer. So.
Well, they're for both technically, but let me get you to rewind. Let me get you to rewind a little bit, because a lot of salespeople will watch this because either they know Shane and I, or we've trained them or something, right? Or they're friends of ours and they happen to be in some sort of sales seat across the country. Some people have just started a gig, right? Or gotten to a sales seat. And they might be working for a full-fledged company that's, already been up and running and just got to go get their customers. But you started in a seat where it was uncharted territory east of Highway 95, right? So, and there was literally, you haven't been there. Now you got to go, build something. Think back to what made you successful. What are some of the key components of how, because it can be, as it can be a daunting task getting that first year under your belt, having success, feeling good about the whole thing, and feeling like you're moving the peg. What do you think were your keys to success in the first, few years?
At the very, very beginning, as I said, when they unfolded the North Carolina map in front of me and said, where you want to go, I went to 2 established civic leaders and business leaders. One was Wes Seegers of Seegers Fence Company in Goldsboro. They have
great guy,
massive operations all over, and they do most of the fencing along North Carolina highways. Their company did, but very well respected guy and a generous person. He sat down with me and with the Goldsboro Chamber of Commerce book and went through it over lunch one day and wrote in people's personal phone numbers and the right contact person in each spot. He did that. And then my uncle was a commercial realtor in Rocky Mount, which is, an hour or so north of there, and did the same thing and said, use my name if you need to. And then I went after I went straight to the top of a lot of the key businesses in those towns. I was able to use the name of a friend of theirs to get in the door to have a conversation. And then once they got on board, they were references for me too. So I've networked, very laser focused with good people that have remained friends for 30 years now. And then that got it started because people in these smaller cities, Greenville's 91,000 people and it's the biggest city in the East. Most of them are much smaller, but so the community leaders they all know each other. And so when one of them says, "Hey, you need to call this guy," that just really, I will say that. And that was no, all jokes aside, that was pre-internet. We did not have, you could not Google search somebody. You couldn't, you literally would pick up the yellow page directory from that town and go through and start building your vertical market from that. And a whole lot of driving. We didn't have, cell phones came along just about the time I got doing this, but there was
what was your first cell phone? Was a Motorola bag phone?
No. It was a dash mounted Motorola. And so when I had more comfort, the thing was it was mounted to the dash of the truck. Well, I'd be out on a call somewhere. And when the phone would ring, the horn would honk on the truck.
Cross wiring.
Freaking awesome. And then, the box, it was like a giant cigar box under the seat that was cabled up to the thing on the dash. And it was before we had seat warmers in vehicles too, but that box down there would keep your tail warm while you were driving. But you'd have to keep a roll of quarters in your console because there was no cell service between the cities. They had cell towers in Greenville or Rocky Mountain. You could get on the phone, but so it wasn't easy. And before that, we had to ride dinosaurs to work. So there's so many tools available now to find the right people or find the right size building and collect data so you can hammer the phones. And there's something to be said. I still say I would be driving through some county I hadn't been in before, and I'd see a sign that says, industrial park, and take a right and just ride through and go walk into lobbies and knock on doors, which I know Corey did a lot of with us back in the day. He knew every receptionist in Eastern North Carolina and treated them with honor and knew their names and learned about them so that as they were gatekeepers, the trust was built with the gatekeepers, and that was successful too. So anyway, it's about relationships. I'm still a face-to-face person or a voice-to-voice. I'm not I use email, but that should only be for moving data around, not building relationships. So in my opinion, I like pressing the flesh and knowing folks. So it's been that's it. Nothing's new under the sun.
How long were you driving the sales, and then you had to hire your first sales rep? How long? What was that transition? I don't know if I've ever gotten that timeline.
So from through 90 all the way through 93, I was the only maintenance sales rep in the East, and then I hired a guy named Davis Majette, who was a whole lot of fun. He's actually a sales trainer in Florida now. I've tracked him down a few years ago. He was a lot of fun. He didn't sell much, but he was a lot of fun. He was just,
that's why he's training.
There you go. That's right.
That's funny.
He was great. So anyways, I would say it was probably a good 4 years where it was just me. And then I was a selling general manager when I moved here. So I still had quota for probably 5 years, as well as running the company. And I was the service manager and the sales man. I sold projects and everything my first year that we were open. And then brought a service manager, Roger Corbin, who's retired yesterday. He was my service manager for 8 years. Wonderful guy. And he sent his farewell email to everybody yesterday afternoon.
Oh, that's fun.
But we started working together in 1981, and that's another beautiful thing about Piedmont is, you sit around the table at meetings and there's guys that you've known since you didn't have to shave every day. You were still young, and then we went through the Tom Selleck mustache phase where everybody in the company had a mustache for a long time.
Everybody was smoking at the table with their mustache.
Everybody's smoking at the table and flicking their mullets. And,
mid to late 80s, boy, there was a time.
Great time to be alive.
Pour some bourbon for this meeting, boys. Golly. Everybody light them up.
We never, no bourbon at Piedmont until after 5. So.
Well, what, you had your biggest challenge. What's your favorite part of building a business?
Watching young technicians that, whether we, get them while they're in high school or just, while they're finishing up their technical school training, watch them come in here and start a career. And, within a year or two, they've either get engaged or they buy a house and then they start a family. That's just been really, I've done life. I mean, there's people here that have, Wayne Sadler's been here since it'll be 30 years in January, and Tim Cobb and these guys, we grew up together. And the people, I was only 33 when they put me down here, and I didn't know what I didn't know when I started. And I was a maintenance sales rep on Friday, and on Monday I was a general manager of the new home. So, we've got some long tenured people in here, and so that's been the coolest part is just watching people, young guy, they'll get married and then start having kids, and it's been real sweet. I mean, it's good. And there's we're in a big, nice, beautiful, shiny building now, and it hadn't always been that way, but that's a lot to be proud of. We've got, a lot of exposure to the Highway 264 out here across the way, and we're just a known entity. I feel like we're just a valued business partner in our communities where we work and live. Mm-hmm. So, and y'all know I'm all about giving back to the community and with your time and treasure. So that's kind of where my career's doing a lot of that now. Is just serving on whether it's transformers and building careers for kids or, serving on boards at the Chamber of Commerce or whatever. So
I like, what's funny is I fast forward from HB's conversations, getting the chamber directory out right back in when he started in, the 90s, fast forward to 2004 when I started. I did the exact same thing because still the internet wasn't as prevalent as it is, of course, today. But Julia Farmer, right, and at Rocky Mount, Chamber of Rocky Mount, took me under her wing, and I'd show up to an event and say, Julia, who do I need to meet here? Come on, baby, let's go. And she'd interrupt conversations. Hey, y'all need to meet Corey Brown, right? He's with Piedmont Service Group or Piedmont Air Conditioning back in the day. And so those relationships, and for those of you that might live west of Highway 95, the Chamber of Commerce in these smaller towns, there's really not a whole lot of association, specific categories like IFMA or BOMAs that you might find in Raleigh or Charlotte or other major metropolitans around the country. So the Chamber really is where the business leaders go to network and associate with each other and learn who everybody is. So eat a little shrimp and, get to know some folks half the time. So it's fun. It's
a cool place to live. It's a slower pace than Raleigh. I remember driving down here. My ancestors lived within 5 miles of where I'm sitting right now in the early 1700s. I mean, so it feels like home in a real deep way when you're here. But we don't have everything that the larger cities do. We don't have Uber here. We do have a guy named Goober that'll pick you up.
But he doesn't take money in exchange for a ride, though. So be aware. Yeah,
he takes fruit. He's a howler monkey. HB, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about. So you're the oldest of 5, by the way, which makes a difference.
I'm oldest son. I'm the middle child, but oldest son. I have two younger brothers that are
That's
twins.
right. Your sisters are older.
And I got two older sisters, but my mom had 5 kids in 6.5 years.
Oh,
And,
man. She
yeah.
gets the high five for today.
Yeah, just fun, successful family. Both my older sisters, my sister Beth, who I'm closest to in age, and we're pretty tight. She's going to retire at the end of this year, and she's had a real successful career in sales, but hers has been in the banking industry, savings and loan information software, and now net bank audit is her company now, selling audit services to banks. And younger brother John, who lives in Raleigh, is a director of government work for basically the East Coast for Spectrum Enterprise, the business. He works with the governments and school systems and all that. And my youngest brother is in Florida, and he's been in HR. Early in both the twins' lives, the youngest brother's a chef, a trained chef by trade, and has stayed in the hospitality business for all these years. So, and my oldest sister was a teacher. And so anyway, I got 2 kids. I've got a 30-year-old daughter who's married and lives in Augusta. Yeah. And she's a school teacher, and her husband works with John Deere down there in supply chain management. And then my son and his wife live in Brooklyn, New York, and he's in men's apparel, does a golf brand called Grayson. And my daughter-in-law is a mechanical engineer, and they both work remote right now. My son goes to Detroit to headquarters every couple of weeks, and but anyway, they're both doing great. And
can you still buy a Harrison jacket at Peter Millar by chance?
It's probably a good possibility. So
yeah. Go look up the Harrison, everybody. It's Harrison's design jacket himself.
The name of your podcast is Bring the Heat, and this morning we could have used it.
It was
19 degrees here in the sunny South. So yeah, but it's proud of my family. My wife's a high school teacher, works with young, struggling, a lot of inner city kids that need help learning math. So she's been doing that for a long time. So.
And how's your pop doing?
He's just turned 95 in September, still drives a little bit, still exercises. He walks every day. So he'll tell you, he says, my mother died of early onset Alzheimer's 26 years ago. But my dad says, keep moving. And so he walks a mile every day. He leads an exercise group at the retirement home every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Heck yeah, only for the ladies.
Yeah. And
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure he wears a tank top and but he's been a voracious reader his whole life, just loves to learn. He's a college professor, and he's in a book club that he's been in for probably 45 years that used to be Friday breakfast, and now it's lunch on Fridays, and there's only 3 of them left. There were 40 when it started. The rest of them have gone on to be with the Lord. And but at lunch on Tuesdays, he has a lunch club. He lives in a cottage in a retirement community, so he's not like in a nursing home. But he has lunch with, I think it's 5 other guys on Tuesdays, and everybody but him was on a Normandy beach on D-Day. And so having lunch with the greatest generation is pretty cool, but they're fun. So they go to different restaurants. He says they have to have draft beer. They have 1 beer at lunch, and then everybody goes home and takes a nap. I think they all go to dinner at 4:30.
That's right.
Some days I'll call him at 2:00 and go, "Are you at supper?" And he said, "Shut up." But he's just so bright and just as sharp-minded and well-spoken, and I think he takes a low-dose blood pressure pill, and that's it. He doesn't. I mean, he's but a life of moderation.
Testosterone make him still buff.
a life of moderation. He stopped smoking before my mom made him quit before she'd marry him, and
smart woman.
Drank very little. He might have a glass of wine before dinner or a Miller Pony bottle, but he never overdid it. So, so anyway, happy man, and still goes to church every Sunday.
Good.
And
Well, yeah, and I can say, like, I can't speak for Corey, but I know early on in our careers and in mine, one of the things I think that's special about that office and that whole deal was, you and Tracy, your wife, you guys invested in us. So we watched as you guys, because when we were working there, your kids were kids. They were young, they were small, and we got to watch, and you brought us alongside them, so we got to meet them and all that kind of stuff. And now, I got started a little later with kids. Mine are 5. Corey's, are older than mine, but we all were able to learn from you from a business perspective, but also personally. We got to see how a good marriage works and how good parents try to raise good kids. And, my wife still loves you just as much as I do, to this day. And it could be a somewhat rare thing, but I wish that it wasn't, because it's powerful and it means a lot. So now I think that's why it's important for me and Corey, even something like this podcast. It's like, man, every chance you get to pour into other folks and to do other things, it really is important, because you're going to be gone one day. And if once the last person stops remembering you are gone, so like you better be doing things to carry on some sort of legacy. And that's not always with your family. Sometimes that is with your work family. So, it was a good deal, man. And it's been a pleasure working with you and getting to know you and all that kind of stuff. So, man, I'm glad you came to see us and hang out with us for a little while.
It's been fun. And I hope after I officially retired a few years that I can keep my hand in the game somehow, whether sales training or
absolutely.
Yeah. You come back on the podcast. This is not a one-time thing, man.
The next one we're going to do on your dock.
Honey, I got to shave. I got to be on the TV
today. Put your clothes on. I got to get on the podcast. Yes,
yeah, I've got on swimsuit underneath my sweater.
That's right. 1 foot out the door, baby. That's
People
right.
need to understand the context of swimsuits to work, right? That cat made fun of my suit that I was wearing the first time I showed up. He goes, golly, is this what you wear to have fun, or play golf in? I was like, heck no. So I love to wakeboard. So I showed up in a T-shirt and a bathing suit the next meeting and said, this is what I have fun in.
That's right.
Let's do some business. He never did. It was the wrong client, but nevertheless.
Corey always wanted to be memorable, so that was one of his.
That's right. Be memorable. If they're not going to buy from you today, they'll remember you tomorrow.
Well, it was probably a year after I started here, maybe sometime in the first 24 months, when I was still living in Raleigh and selling in the East, which I did for 50,000 miles a year on a car. But I walked into a company. It was a manufacturing plant in Wilson one afternoon, and we still wore either a suit and tie or a sport coat and tie to sales calls as maintenance sales reps. And the premise was we're selling a financial offering to C-level people. Right. But I remember I sat down, Rob Lease was another rep that was with me that day. And we sat down in this guy's office, and he goes, this has always stuck with me. He goes, I see 6 stuffed suits a day. What you got? And I was like, okay, that's when you make sure you have a good value proposition and can bring it, bring the heat and show them what you got. So it's, and we forget, sometimes when we talk about following up with clients, sometimes you leave your first call with them and they have 25 more meetings before they see you next week. And they can't even remember what you talked about. So you have to follow up, and a good agenda for your next meeting is always of high value. So,
I'll tell this story just because I remember it, and we've known each other a long time, dude. When before I even started working here, we had a conversation, and you said you ought to come, at least talk to me, and I was just asking, like, what do you do? Well, we're in the air conditioning business, but everybody needs what we have. They just don't know it, right? And you mentioned that exact line. They just don't know it, but everybody needs it. And so that stuck with me. And all throughout my career and still today, it really is the only reason we don't have all the business, is because they don't know who we are, right? Or we hadn't been able to, beat through the door to sit down and have a meaningful conversation because they've been too busy or whatnot. So throughout my career, it's been very rewarding to be able to go in and consult with a company and some individuals that to help really make an impact. To bottom lines, we do a lot of work with churches here in the East, right? And to be able to save a church congregation, $30,000 a year is big money, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, it's high value stuff that we do and makes waves. So HB, thank you for taking a minute, brother.
It was an honor to be with you guys. Say again.
Or 45 of them. So we appreciate the stories, and we'll get to some more later.
I'd love it. And y'all, hope you both have a Merry Christmas. And
you do the same, man. Take care.
Buddy. All right.
Take care. Bye.
Later.